Hello, my name is Peter Milton and I developed TimeChainage. This is part 2 of a series of tutorials designed to help you produce your first schedule in TimeChainage. In the last video we set up a project file, we set project details, added calendars and established a work breakdown structure. We are now ready to start adding planned activities to our schedule. I will not be explaining how to plan a job, and I will assume that you have some experience with standard planning packages such as Primavera P6 and Microsoft Project. The intention is to help you get familiar with how TimeChainage does things and to learn about its unique features. In this video we will produce a program of the works by adding activities. This can then be displayed as a TimeChainage chart. I have already opened TimeChainage. Let's now open the project file we started in the last video. We go to the File menu and we can use the Open dialog to get to our project file, but the recent files list shows it, so we can open it here. Let's have a quick recap of what we did in the last video. In the project form, we entered some basic details including a project start date. We also set some project preferences. Next we went to the calendars dialog, and here we created 2 new calendars in addition to the default one. A 5-day week calendar and a 7-day week calendar, both with holiday periods. We then set up the work breakdown structure. Here we had 19 values covering the scope of the works. In the WBS we specified line colours, width and styles that we want to see in the TimeChainage chart. All activities in our plan must be allocated a WBS value and a calendar, which is why we set them up first. Now to create our schedule. To do this we add activities in the planned form. We open the planned form via the button on the toolbar. This form is split into 4 main areas. Across the top is a toolbar. Below this is the activity table. Below the table is a details panel, and there is also a status bar. The toolbar contains buttons for adding and deleting activities, moving tasks up and down in the table, saving and displaying a sort order, scheduling, copy and paste to and from the clipboard, and hiding or showing columns. There are also controls for filtering. The table is where you add activities for your plan. In the table there are quite a few columns, some of which are auto-filled. The main differences to a standard bar chart application is the need to have start and finish chainages and a production rate. The details panel has several tabs: details, predecessors, successors, summary and variances. The details tab contains all of the input fields other than relationships. The predecessors tab allows you to enter up to 10 predecessors. The successors tab allows you to enter up to 10 successors. The summary tab shows comprehensive information on chainages, dates, durations, lengths and production rates. The variances tab shows variances between the planned activity and any baselines you may have created. You can edit an activity in the table directly or in the details panel. The status bar shows the total number of activities, total length, overall work duration, overall calendar duration, total TRA and overall average production rate. The figures are based on what filters are applied in the toolbar. Different line types can be produced in TimeChainage depending on how you enter some of the data. This diagram shows the basic line types. There's a diagonal line. This is the basic line type for a linear activity. Remember that the horizontal axis is distance and the vertical axis is time. The normal convention is with increasing time going down. So with this example, the task starts at the top left and finishes at the bottom right. The diagonal box. This is similar to the diagonal line, except work at any one point along the route of the task takes a period of time. Horizontal line. This represents a milestone or event covering a set chainage range. For example, it could be a key date for a section of works. Vertical line. This can represent an activity that has a small physical footprint, such as constructing a manhole, or it could represent a location milestone that is within a range of dates. Box. This can represent a non-linear type activity that has a significant physical footprint. Examples might be constructing a pumping station or installing some mica. Milestone. This represents an event that occurs at a specific location and time. I will now show you how these line types are produced. To produce a diagonal line, representing a linear type activity, we need a start and finish location and a production rate. In the plan form, we'll enter a description of diagonal line. The start chainage will be 0, and the end chainage must be different to the start. I will put in 100 meters. The production rate must be greater than 0. We will put in 10 meters per day. The point duration must be 0. TRA stands for time risk allowance. This is an optional field. We will leave it at 0. I will schedule the program and exit the plan form to see the chart. As you can see, we have a diagonal line with some vertical sections. The vertical segments represent periods of time without any production, and in this case it's due to weekends. We use the default calendar, which is Monday to Friday working. We'll go back into the plan form and produce a diagonal box. We'll create a new task by clicking on the down arrow button on the keyboard. We'll call this diagonal box. The start chainage will be 0 and the end chainage must be different. We will put in 100 meters. The production rate must be greater than 0. We will put in 10 meters a day. So far just like a diagonal line. But now we will add a period in the point duration column of 2 days. I will add a relationship so it starts after the diagonal line. In the predecessor column, I simply type in the reference ID for the diagonal line task, which is 1. I will add a lag of 2 days just to provide a bit of space between the tasks. I will now schedule, and we exit the plan form and we see the diagonal box. Notice how the auto range control sets the chart range to include both the activities. We can refine this view a little more by including a bit of time and space around the activities. To do this, we go to the Format menu and select Chart Setup. Then we go to the Format tab. In the Auto Range Margins section, we can enter margins for the date range and the chainage range. I will add 5 meters for the chainage range and 2 days for the date range. Now we will click the OK button to exit this dialog. As you can see, we have a bit of space now around our activities. Returning to the plan form, I'll create a new activity by clicking on the Add button in the toolbar. The next line type is the horizontal line, so I will name it as such. Chainages are again 0 and 100. The production rate must be 0. And the point duration must be 0. I'll add a relationship link to activity 2. Again, we will add a lag of 2 days. I'll now create a new activity and give it a description of a vertical line. It is made by the start and finish chainages being the same, say 50 meters. The production rate must be 0 and the point duration must be greater than 0. I will put in 10 days. I'll link this to activity 3 and give it a lag of 2 days. We'll do a box next. I will add an activity and call it box. The start chainage is 30. The end chainage is 70. The production rate must be 0. And the point duration must be greater than 0. We will put in 10. We'll link this to activity 4 with a lag of 2 days. Lastly, I'll add an activity and make it a milestone. The start chainage is 50. The end must be the same at 50. The production rate must be 0. And the point duration must be 0. We will link this to activity 5 and again give it a 2-day lag. I'll schedule the program and exit the plan form to see how they appear in the chart. Now we know what the line types are and how to make them. We will delete the tasks as they do not form part of the schedule we want. Going back into the plan form, we can delete them one by one by selecting an activity and then clicking the delete button in the toolbar. Or else we can delete a range of tasks all in one go, which is what we will do. We click on task 1, then with the shift button down we click on the last task, then release the shift button. Then we press the delete row button on the toolbar. Let's now enter some activities to create our schedule. We can click the add button on the toolbar to add an activity, or if we are just starting and have no activities yet, just click anywhere on the first row and a new task line is populated with default values. Note the reference number is automatically generated by TimeChainage. Let's add a description. I will type in setup compound. This will be a simple box style type of task. I will enter 100 meters for the start chainage, 150 meters for the end chainage. The production rate is 1 by default. We will change this to 0. We then enter 15 days for the point duration. We will not be using the TRA for this schedule to keep things simple, so that is left as 0 days. As this is the first activity with no predecessors, it will start by default on the project start date that we set in the project preferences earlier. If we want it to start at a later date, we need to add a start constraint. We'll do that for this activity. In the constraint type field in the details panel, select start on or after. And in the date field below, we can type the date or use a pull down calendar to select the date. We will do this and select 19th of May 2025. We need to allocate the task to the work breakdown structure. By default, it will give a value of 1, which is the first item in the WBS form. We select the value we want from the drop-down list in the details panel. We will select compounds. We also need a calendar for the task. By default, it is the calendar set in the WBS form for the value we selected. In this case, it is the 5-day calendar with holidays. We can change it if we want to from the details panel, but we will leave it at the default. To get TimeChainage to schedule the program and draw the chart, we need to click on the schedule button on the toolbar, or else press F9 on the keyboard. We don't have to do this each time we add an activity. This is just to show you the result. So TimeChainage has now scheduled the program and the table is updated. Let's come out of the plan form and look at the chart. We will close the form by clicking on the close button on the toolbar. We are back in the main application screen. As you can see, the whole chart is taken up by a rectangular box. This is because we have the auto range feature checked and only have one activity, so that is the extent of the chart. We could manually enter a date and chainage range now, but I will leave it set as auto for now. We will change it once all of the activities have been entered and we want to create some specific layouts. Let's go back into the plan form and continue building our schedule. I'll click on the plan form button on the toolbar to open it up. The next activity we will add is a linear task. That is a repetitive task that occurs over a distance. We can click on the Add Task button on the toolbar to add a new task, or else we can select the last task in the table and press the down arrow key once on the keyboard. For a description, we will type Access Track. The start chainage will be 150 meters and the end chainage will be 300 meters. Remember, in the project preferences we define the chainage unit as linear meters. TimeChainage, however, does not care what the distance units are. As this is a linear activity, it will have a production rate, and we shall enter 9 meters per day. We will leave TRA and point duration as 0. We want to make the compound setup a predecessor. The compound task has an activity reference of 1, so we enter 1 in the predecessor field for our new task. The relationship and lag fields are given default values. There are just 3 relationship types in TimeChainage, as can be seen in the Predecessors tab Reminder List in the Details panel. These are FS, or Finish to Start, SS, or Start to Start, and BS, Box Finish to Start. If you have used P6 or Microsoft Project, you will know what FS and SS mean, but BS will need explaining. In this image, you can see how the relationships work for diagonal line and diagonal box types. At the top are start to start relationships, in the middle are finish to start relationships, and at the bottom are box finish to start relationships. You will be familiar with the SS and FS relationship type, but not how they would work with diagonal lines and boxes. For the SS type, the successor starts on the same date as the predecessor, as you would expect. This applies to all line and box types. For the finish to start type, the successor starts after a vertical or diagonal line predecessor finishes, or when a box or diagonal box predecessor reaches the finish chainage. The box finish to start relationship is specific to TimeChainage. It is the same as a finish to start relationship for horizontal, vertical and diagonal lines, but for a box or diagonal box, the successor cannot start until the predecessor is completely finished. This is the default relationship type. Returning to the plan form, as the successor is a box activity, the default relationship of BS is what we want. We don't want any lag, so we will keep the default value of 0. For the WBS, we will select haul roads. And we will keep the 5-day week calendar. Now let's schedule the program to see the result. I'll click on the schedule button in the toolbar and it's done. An alternative way to schedule is to press F9 on your keyboard. You will see that TimeChainage has calculated a length of 150 meters and a duration of 16.7 days. There are 2 duration fields. Chainage duration is based just on the length and production rate. The overall duration allows for a point duration as well. It's showing an average progress rate of 9 meters a day, a start date of 10th of June, and a finish date of 2nd of July. We can also see it currently has 0 free float and total float, although this is likely to change when we add more activities. Let's quickly come out of the plan form and see the chart. As you can see, the chart now includes 2 activities, a simple box to represent the welfare setup and a diagonal line representing the trackway construction. We will now finish off creating the planned schedule. I won't make you watch me enter in all of the remaining activities. Instead, by the magic of the Windows clipboard, I will paste in the activities that I prepared earlier. We do this by clicking on the paste button on the toolbar. After pasting in activities, we need to schedule the program. So let's click the schedule button. Let's see what the chart looks like now with all the activities. We close the form using the close button on the toolbar. As you can see, all of the activities are shown now in the chart. This is because the auto range feature has adjusted the chart range to suit. Of course, we are not finished yet. We have to format the chart still, but we will do this in the next video. Just before we finish this video, let's look at some of the features in the plan form. We will access the form again using the button on the toolbar. We can move activities in the table up and down using the arrow buttons on the toolbar like so. We can copy the entire table to the Windows clipboard using the copy button. This is useful if you like working in Excel. Then when you have finished in Excel, you can copy the table and paste it back into TimeChainage using the paste button just like we did earlier. We can reduce the number of visible columns in the table by clicking the appropriate group buttons on the toolbar. So just quickly, we can hide the production columns, the relationship columns, the constraint columns, the calculated field columns, the chainage and date columns, the activity code columns, the float columns, and the user-defined columns. If you hide columns, you can still view the details and edit in the Details panel. To unhide the columns, just click the appropriate buttons again. You can adjust the width of the columns by grabbing the edge of a column header and dragging it left or right. You can resequence the activities by clicking on a column header. The first click sorts in ascending order. A second click sorts in descending order. When you have an order that you want to keep, you can save it. Just click on the Save Current Sequence button in the toolbar. Then if you resort for any reason, you can still bring back your saved sort order by clicking on the Sort by Saved Sequence button. We can do a quick filter if we want to look at something specific in a large schedule. We can filter on WBS and activity codes. Let's look at just the haul roads. In the WBS selection box in the toolbar, we will select haul roads. We now see just the haul road activities in the table. Note that the numbers in the status bar have changed. This is because they show the effects of the filters. So now we can see the number of tasks making up just the haul road construction. We can also see the total length of these works, the work in calendar durations, the total TRA, and what the overall average production rate is. Let's take a quick look at predecessors and successors. In the Details panel, there are tabs for predecessors and successors. Let's open the predecessors tab first. You can have multiple predecessors to any activity. You just add them to the table. If you know the reference ID for the predecessor, then you can just type it straight in and a default relationship will be allocated along with zero lag. You edit these to suit your needs. The relationship must be FS, SS or BS. If you do not know the reference ID of the activity you want to be a predecessor, then click on the Assign button and that will open up a dialog that allows you to navigate to the activity you want. Select the task and press the Assign Relationship button. Then press the Close button to return to the plan form. To remove a relationship, select it and click the Remove button. Remember you have to reschedule in order to update the program. You'll see that the Successors tab looks very similar to the predecessors and works in a similar way, except of course we are now dealing with successors. Again, you can have multiple successors for any activity, and you assign and remove relationships in the same way as for predecessors. If you accidentally create a loop when adding a relationship, then the next time you schedule, a loop warning message will appear with a list of activities making up the loop. You will then need to identify what relationship is causing the loop and remove it. Let's now take a look at the Summary tab. There is nothing here you can edit, but there is some information about the selected activity you could find useful, including chainages, dates, durations, lengths, and production rate. The Variances tab is useful if you have one or more baselines. A future video will cover how to create and use baselines. We will exit the plan form by clicking on the Close button in the toolbar. The last thing we need to do now is to save the project file. Go to the File menu and click Save. We can now close TimeChainage. In the next video, we will format the chart we just created. Hope to see you then, and thanks for watching.